Looks like we've got a pretty good crowd tonight for competition image review. I think we've got a couple of things coming up to think about. It's early enough to ask for input for what would you like to do fifth Thursday. I think we have one in June. So let's think about that. I know Patrick has a good speaker for us coming up this couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So our next speaker 2 weeks from now is Jane Hogan. Jane is an artist, as in a painter type of artist. And so she will be presenting the topic of composition. My last communication with her was that she would like to have this as a give and take. At first, she was going to do a classroom style. This is how you do a composition. Yay. So now what she's going to do, she's bringing images with her, both photographs and paintings, and to have more of a discussion about what is and what isn't a good composition. So all of you that are online, please show up. Okay. And all of you that are, okay. Because we really like to have a nice turnout for Jane. So that's who we've got for this month. And we are, that's me, working on May. So yes, exactly. It might be me, and I might talk about panorama photography. I don't know.
Gary, do you have any updates for us on group outings?
We're in June, right? The three of us?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Hello. So photo walks. We have one scheduled for the 12th of April, which is Saturday. Should have sent you a slide. I'm sorry. Which is Saturday, a week and a half from now, right? We'll be meeting at 8 o'clock, bright and early, near the square in Georgetown, and wander around, hopefully look at wildflowers. I'm very encouraged now that the rain has come that we're starting to see wildflowers. I'm hoping the poppies are starting to come out too. That'll be awesome. And then we, teaser, we are planning a road trip to San Saba in May. One Saturday morning, kind of take a morning to get out of town again and go see a small town. Went through there on the way to White Sands a couple weeks ago, had a look-see for where we want to go. It looks very, very intriguing. So we're happy about that and looking forward to it. And then we're going to try to do one more, at least one more before the weather gets horrible. Hoping, need to find a destination. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, always check Facebook. I'll send out emails, and then we get it onto the calendar on the website as well. Right? Okay.
Hey, Clay Lehman here, membership secretary. Wanted to say welcome to our, not the new member, but the first time coming member. This is Christian Davis. He's also stepped right into it, being a volunteer judge, which is really a great way to learn, right, Christian?
That's right.
Why don't you just introduce yourself real quickly in about 2 or 3 words, sentences.
Christian Davis, native Austinite. Been a photographer for about 15 years, a little bit over. Focus on nature. I like macro, birds, colors, patterns, abstracts, flowers, all kinds of stuff. Really excited to be here and really excited to meet other local photographers and build relationships. So thanks, y'all.
Terrific. Welcome.
Cody, I think it's your show, sir.
All right.
You might introduce your other 2 judges and it's all yours.
Okay. 1 second. I just want to say new member Tim Levin has joined, and that's all I have.
Okay, let's get started. So the other judges, we got Ty and Larry stepped up and helped out as well. So thank you. And we're going to need judges for the next competition. So I'll go ahead and plug that. So if anyone's interested, talk to me afterwards and I'll start working on that. All right, so let's get started. So we'll start. So the theme Cityscapes. So we'll start with the walkthrough of the images and then we'll move over to the critiques. So there, so we'll start here. Austin Avenue. See, coming home safe. Waiting for clarity. London parallels. We're late. And Austin nightscape. Okay. All right, cool. This worked. All right, critiques. Okay, first up we have anomalies.
I'm talking about anomalies and I'm waiting for it to show up here, but anyway, I can go ahead and start. I can hardly see it up. Okay, I'll just talk about it. I think there's so much good to say about this image. I really like it. I think the use of the bold, contrasty black and white really works well here. And the wide angle lens gives a bit of distortion to the buildings. But in this case, I think it really adds to the feeling of those buildings reaching towards the sky, the fact that they get a little narrower as it goes up, and that with that heavy mass of the building being grounded to their foundations, with the bottom being darker and wider. So a lot of times I'll tend to complain that the buildings need to be straightened and stuff and look at your keystoning. But in this case, I think that it actually is better to have this distortion in here because it just really makes those buildings look like they're reaching high. The sun flare and with the dark sky in the background and the bright clouds add to the intensity of the picture. I think that it's good that this is really about the buildings and the sky and the city, and the streets are pretty dark. It's not looking at the people on the streets. So I think a lot of the choices in this really made this image work well.
Cool. And next we have Austin Avenue, Georgetown, Texas.
Yeah, that one's me. Thanks. I like this photo a lot. It does a really good job of putting me in the scene. And it's really fun to see this kind of anachronistic scene, like it's a city out of time. Like there's nothing in it that tells me when it is, right? There's no cars, there's nothing really modern. The architecture in the buildings, old fashioned, the sepia tone treatment of the grayscale is also really, in my opinion, contributes to that feeling of timelessness. So yeah, I thought it was really cool, and it really gave me like the essence of the city, which is what the theme of the contest was. I did have a suggestion for it that I thought would have, for me, added even a little more interest to it, would have been, I need to be louder? Okay, sorry. Bring the mic up a little bit too and see if that helps. I would have liked to have seen one like sort of foreground subject element in the scene. One either like a person crossing the street, which might have disrupted the anachronism, the out of timeness. So I'm a little bit hesitant about that suggestion. Or the other thought I had was if there was like a little bit of like shooting through a frame kind of a thing, like if you could have the camera behind a fence or behind a tree, or have an element to give like a front and a back to it, would have given some depth that I think could have been fun to play with. But I do really like the photo as is, so it's not a critique so much as just an inspiration I had when looking at it that I thought might have been fun to see. Okay. Good.
We have coming home safe.
And that's mine. I thought it was feel like I'm blasted. Okay. I thought it was a real unique composition that tells a story of travel. I like the concept and what the creator was attempting to do. The tonality in there is actually quite nice. The warmth really adds a lot to it. However, I don't think a panoramic view really suits the image that well. I think if it was cropped, and particularly cropped to an area just a little bit behind where the airplane is, so that the airplane was flying into space, like up from the edge of the image to indicate that it is moving, would help a lot. the buildings being silhouette is nice, but they don't seem to be that sharp. And I think silhouette images should be a lot sharper than that. On the foreground and the bottom, it's just so dark that it doesn't really do anything at all. And the other thing is that the way it is right now, it just feels like the airplane's like hanging from a string. But I think that the creator has a really good idea. I've really encouraged them to try to move forward with it and try some other things out. Like I said, start with the cropping and see what else they can do as far as maybe brightening something up in the bottom, or just a little bit of recomposure.
Okay, next is waiting for clarity.
All right. Once again, we're using black and white. We have more black and white in this set than we typically do, and I think that it really works here. This is a very moody image, I feel like, and the silhouetted image of the person looking out the window at the slightly hazy cityscape gives an interesting contrast between being inside and out. I think that it's a good use of using the window to frame the city outside. So it's using the window frame as a frame. And the way that it's done with just the light from the window falling on the person, you really get the feeling of the person being on the inside looking out. And I think that it also gives you, with that soft light coming in, gives the feeling of calm in the room as you're looking out on the more active city. So I thought that that was some, pretty interesting ways to show this cityscape, and the fact that the outside is a little bit of out of focus and stuff. I think that's fine. It gives that feeling of the calm inside the room, looking out at the city where all this activity is going on, and there's steam or smoke or something going up, and there's clouds and haze in the sky and everything. So it just seems like there's activity going on out there. So I thought it was a nice image, and I think that the black and white really helps give it this moody feel. So that's it.
Good. London parallels.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of this image. Oh, let me get the mic back up. I really like this image. I think it's a really cool idea. I think it's really a good execution of the idea to see the reflection and kind of the duality of a city. I love the black and white treatment. I think it's plenty sharp. I do think you could play with sharpness and even make it pop a bit more, perhaps. I think the contrast is good. Again, maybe you could even afford to push it further, because I don't think there's anything to lose by doing so, but I don't think it needs it either. I think it's engaging to have the foreground subjects, the two women walking, the man behind them, the contrast in their outfits gives me something to look at. But the thing that my favorite aspect of this photo is that if I really look at it, there's a little bit less presence of people in the reflection on the left than there is visible in the street on the right, because of the angle of the reflection. Some of the people closest to that reflection line aren't there. And so it's a slightly less busy city on the left than on the right. And so there's kind of an imbalance there that I think is engaging and keeps my eye rewarded for exploring for longer periods of time. So I thought it was a really cool picture.
You might have detected vampires.
Right. Maybe it's vampires. That's a really good point.
Okay, next, relate.
Okay. I thought this was a really fun image, and it shows what I assume to be two young men moving rapidly across the street. I applaud the maker for using the black and white. As Ty mentioned before, that there's so many black and whites in this competition. That not only helps set the tone, but also helps focus on the action in the scene being in black and white. The motion blur helps to relay the image, the message of speed, thus running late for the title. However, there needs to be more in focus and a little less blurry. It appears the maker was trying to impart the motion and selective focus, but there isn't enough to separate the main subjects from the rest of the scene. A clearer focus of at least the tops of the main subjects would help a lot to separate them and let you know who's the actual subject in the scene. I thought the image itself was kind of reminiscent of the Beatles album cover from Abbey Road. And I do invite the maker to try again and keep working at it, because I think if they keep trying, they've got something good to work with.
Okay, and then we have Austin Nightscape.
All right. I think that this is an interesting effect of intentional camera movement. And something particularly interesting to me about it was that some colors are affected and others aren't. For some reason, the blue isn't affected, which just to me is just something that makes me think about it. But what's left there is you have this blue arrow pointing to the sky, and it's not all stretched out. I thought that was pretty interesting. And I think that the fact that the movement was only, I'm guessing the movement was only done during part of the exposure, because we've got the buildings and stuff that are actually in focus and not blurred, and it's just the brightest lights that have moved. And so you end up with these bright lights that are all pointing to the center of the image, to the building with the arrow pointing up. And so I just hadn't really seen people do this intentional camera movement and get this effect. I wondered if it could be some sort of computational type that adds just the light, the brightness as it changes, that it adds it to it. I know that some cameras can do that, but it doesn't really make a difference of why or how it was done. I think it came out to be interesting, and from a technical point, well, yeah, whoever took this, it would be nice to know how you did it, because it seems different than, I wouldn't know how to do this, or maybe maybe part of it is the blue lights weren't on all the time. You know, I just don't know how it's exactly done. It doesn't make a difference really how it's done. It was done, it works, and is a pretty interesting one. And in particular, I like the fact that you can actually see all the buildings, the detail in the buildings, and it's just the lights that have been moved with this zoom, I guess. So I don't know how it's done. I think it's interesting. So.
Okay, that's it. So now we'll do the judge's choice. Okay, so we have 3 awards. Okay, so in third place, we have Eric Reeder, Waiting for Clarity. Second, we have Mark, London Parallel.
Let's see, this is on a walkabout in London, and I like the fact that it was just really so layered, like the background just kind of keeps going back and back, a little bit like Inception, which I thought was pretty cool. So I took a whole bunch of shots right there, trying to get the geometry of the people walking, and that was the one I thought was the best. And I like the symmetry of like the M's and other things. It looked like it wasn't reflected unless you really looked at it.
Okay. In first place, we have Jolyn Zamudio, Anomalies. Okay. Then we'll go to People's Choice. Okay, so again, we have 3 images. So bronze was Eric Reeder, Waiting for Clarity. Silver is Jolynn with Anomalies. And then gold is Mark, People's Choice. Okay, we'll switch to intermediate. Quick scan of the images. So we have 12. Okay, so we have Cityscape and Fire Smoke. Georgetown Masonic Lodge Building. Sunrise over ATX. Nightlights. East Berlin TV Tower. Capitol. Gold Reflections. Old and New Towers of London. The Blue Hour. El Andain Centro. Public Art Willie Nelson Boulevard. And that's a lot of windows to wash. Okay. First up, Cityscape and Fire Smoke.
All right. So I like this photo too. I'm gonna say I like this photo on all the photos because they're really good photos and it's fun to look at them. It's fun to see like the scene within a scene. It's fun to see the camera as a framing device. The color palette is beautiful. Really enjoy the pastels a lot. The technical aspects are all really strong. What's in focus is sharp and crisply in focus. It's only the scene within the camera and the camera itself that are in focus. So it gives you that reason to be looking at the camera and the scene through the camera's view instead of what your eye is seeing, because that's all out of focus. It reminds me a little bit of like a cover photo, like in a magazine article or something like that. It has this really professional, clean look to it as well, that I think works really strongly. A couple of suggestions on the photo, because why not always offer ideas, because it's fun to play with ideas. The vantage point for this scene, I don't think shows the best aspect of the city, and that may have been intentional. But if you look to the left of the camera, what we have is a couple of rooftops, a parking lot with some cars in it, and some warehouse buildings, which to me feel generic, like any city could have those. So they don't tell me about this city. And they're not my favorite things to look at. So the bottom left corner of the image for me is not my favorite part. And I feel like that's a lot of real estate that maybe a slightly different compositional angle might have minimized the impact of that. If you even look at the screen on the camera, that part is reduced. The camera zoomed in a little bit more, and it's a little bit less of a depressing urban piece on that screen. So I do wonder if a different angle of view might have removed a part I personally don't love, but I think that's, perhaps even a compositional choice that was intentional, because these are parts of our cities and maybe we don't want to be looking away from cars and rooftops, but instead understand that that's part of the world we're in. So I could be misaligned from what the photographer is going for, which is totally fair. But all in all, aesthetically love looking at the picture, conceptually really enjoy the idea of the picture.
Good. Next, we have Georgetown Masonic Lodge Building.
I like the use of colors and the textures in the bricks. They did a good job of making the image square and straight. To me, the image does look a little soft, and it might be due to it being such a tight crop from a larger image. But my biggest question I have for the maker of this image is, why didn't you capture the whole building? I'm quite familiar with this building, and it's such a wonderful, lovely, I mean, it's really an impactful building to see in its entirety. So why didn't they capture the entire building? Almost doesn't matter what angle, because there's a lot of really good angles of this building to capture. And I actually invite the maker to go back and spend a day or at least a few hours wandering around and just keep shooting away and doing different things with it. And I'm sure that they're going to walk away with something really nice.
Okay. Next, we have sunrise over ATX.
Okay, I'm sort of waiting for mine to update, but. Come on, okay, there it is. All right, so overall, I think that this is a very interesting image, and I think it uses some good techniques. I think that using the very small aperture makes a really effective sun star with the sun rising over the city. There's some editing choices that are kind of confusing to my eyes. And then there's a couple things that I'll just go through it first. So on the right side, the buildings are straight. On the left, it seems like they're tilted in a little bit. So a little bit of keystoning could make it so all those buildings are straight. And I think that that would help. But the thing that sort of confuses me the most is that the bridge is so lit up. And this side of the buildings, I feel like the shadows are lifted kind of high. And so when I look at it, it seems like there's something sort of wrong here. The sun's in my eyes. I know it's coming from the back of this bridge, but the bridge is all lit up. And of course, I'm sure that that's done on purpose so that you can see all the colors and the designs on the bridge. I just feel that it makes it feel a little bit unnatural. And so that's just an artistic choice. I don't say that one is right or wrong, but there's something about it that when I see it because of that, it's like, how's that being lit up when the sun's on the other side? And so I think that maybe just some small adjustments could maybe make that so that it seemed more natural, if that's what's really important. I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily really important to make it look super realistic. This is an artistic way of doing it. So those are just some things that I would say, be aware of and be sure you're doing them because you want to, and not just because you have sliders that you can make. I can show everything. That doesn't necessarily make it maybe the most pleasing overall, but in general, I love the colors of this. I like the pastel colors that you get by lightening it so much. Those are just some comments. So.
Okay. Next is night lights.
Yeah, so this is a super visually impactful image. It's super bright, it's super dark, the colors are rich. It really kind of shouts at me. And even the extreme angle of the tilt of the horizon gives a lot of energy. So it's an energizing photo to look at. It's a bright, vibrant photo, and I think that speaks to the theme of the competition as well, because we're talking about the essence of a city, and I think Austin has a reputation of vibrance and energy, and I think this gives that to me. For me, personal preference, I would do a little less tilt of the horizon. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that amount of tilt. It makes me feel off balance. Might just be me. There's also some interesting kind of JPEG artifacts maybe from compression of the image, visible around the light of the moon, visible between the leftmost building with the pink top and that gap where the other buildings are. And then in the water in front of, I think that's the power plant that's so yellow, little squares that you can see periodically. So I don't know if the image was over compressed or if it was from the processing. I think on a small screen, it looks great. I think if it were printed big and I was standing very close to it, that's not my favorite look. But in a way, it reminds me of like looking through a screen on a window. One other thing that distracts me a little bit is the light reflections in the water. There's some yellow ones to the left, to the right of the blue, and then the blue itself. They're a little bit overexposed and blown out, and that does pull my eye away from the city a little bit. I wonder if that could be just muted a little bit in Photoshop so that my eye could spend more time on the city, which is where I want to be focused. So a couple little tweaks that I think might be valuable to play with or to explore. But overall, this really did, like I said, show me the city with all the energy and vibrance of Austin. And I thought that was really cool.
Okay, next we have East Berlin TV Tower.
And I thought this was a nice dramatic image of an iconic Cold War landmark. I like the different colors in the image. It's got the clouds, it's got the nice blue in the sky. It's got the green in the leaves and the reds and yellows down below in the buildings. But I do feel that those leaves are really oversaturated. If they tone that down a little bit, that would help the image quite a bit. Let's see. And I would like to see more of the river that's in the foreground that I know is there. And they're just barely teasing us with a glimpse of it. There's not really enough to really, I would say, ground it. And that's why I think the river would really be helpful. And it's slightly out of focus and it's blown up too big for it's blown up too big for the resolution. Since the tower is so impressive, you could try a looser crop that shows more of the city and that wonderful river below.
Okay, next we have Capitol.
All right. The name is Capital, so I'm assuming that that's supposed to be the subject of this image, but this image captures a lot. You know, there are plants and poles and cars and streets and sidewalk and reflections of the Blanton Art Museum and its sculptures. And then in the distance behind an awning is the Capitol. So I feel like there's quite a, I mean, it just turns out that it's very busy and a lot of it is all in focus. And I think that having all of that in focus makes it so that you don't know what to focus on. And this is because it was taken with a cell phone. So that's just going to be one of the things with a cell phone. You can't get some of that separation maybe. But I think that there's a lot of compositions in here that could be very interesting on their own. The reflections in the windows with the Blanton and those big mushroom looking sculptures could be a composition in itself. But if the composition, if it's going to be called the Capitol, I think that moving to a different location where you could see the Capitol more, or if you had telephoto lens or something that you could zoom in and focus on the Capitol and have more separation, either due to focus or by just, you know, what is included, would help here. And yeah, so I think that there's a lot going on and that there are probably pieces of this that would make better compositions. And the Capitol is, being that it was in all caps, the Capitol is what this was the title. It feels like it's not really hitting that well. It's more like, where's Waldo Capitol? So it's amazing that you can do this stuff. We all have the phone that we have with us all the time is our cell phone. And so it's a good tool to use. It's just that in this case, it made it a difficult one to really see what the photographer was trying to show, I think.
Okay. Next we have Golden Reflections.
Yeah, so this is a super colorful picture of Austin, and I love the fact that it is a super colorful picture of Austin, similar to my feedback on the previous photo I talked about. There's a lot of energy and a lot of vibrance. And again, I think that fits kind of the reputation of Austin and my experience of the city as well. And that's really cool. My favorite part of this image is the way the buildings look in the water, the reflection of them with the ripples. I think the colors being so saturated and the ripples distorting the shapes gives a real abstract feel that I think is really super cool. And that's what I enjoy the most in this photo. For me, I think the saturation is maybe a touch more than I would want, and maybe a touch to the orange of where I would want the overall image to be. I suspect it's shot at golden hour and that accounts for the orange, but I still might have been tempted to shift the white balance a little bit. I wish there was a little more room and above the buildings. I think the top of the image is real close to the top of the buildings, especially on the left, and that kind of anchors me a little bit when I get there and I get stuck. And then I wish the tree on the right wasn't there. It covers some of the city. It's not as vibrant or colorful. It's a little bit dark and a little bit bland by comparison. And so again, that sort of takes me out of the feeling I have. So I wonder if closer to a 1-to-1 crop to get rid of that, or maybe just even if the photographer could have stepped left. Although they're so close to the water, I'm not sure they could have.
With waiters.
But again, the energy and the colors match Boston to me in a really great way. So it's a fun image.
Okay, next we have Old and New Towers of London.
I thought it was a nice, pleasing image, presumably taken from a tour boat or from across the river. Too bad the Citadel complex is hidden behind the trees. That was one of my biggest complaints. The colors are pleasing and could stand a little more saturation. The whole image seems a little bit soft overall. I think this was possibly just an image of opportunity, like I said, possibly from a tour boat. I'm not sure, I wasn't there, so I'm gonna just kind of leave it where it's at.
Okay. Next we have the Blue Hour.
All right. This is a nice blue hour photo of the Austin skyline. And I think that the colors are very bold and that it really works well. And I think that all the buildings look like they were nice and straight. The small aperture makes some pleasing stars at the very brightest lights on the tops of a few of the buildings. And this has a long 30-second exposure, which helps smooth the water. And so you get the very smooth water and the reflections. Down near the bottom, I think there are some imperfections in the water. And so I wonder if you might be able to improve it some by actually cropping some of the water out. You lose some of the reflections, but I think that you'd have a line of reflections across the whole bottom of the image, and you'd have the tall buildings coming up out from the water and into the sky. And that would take away some of the little imperfections in the water too. And so I just wonder if doing that, you would still get the lovely blue sky and the gradation. You get most of the reflections, just the very tallest buildings might be cut off, but you'd have reflections across the whole bottom. And some of the tallest buildings, the reflections go off the bottom anyway. So a 16:9 was the thing that I thought might help, but overall, it's done very well. It's exposed well, everything looks nice and sharp, and the buildings look like they've been keystone straight. So I think it works well.
Okay. Next we have El Andean Centro.
So this is a really fun, interesting, and for me, unique kind of a photograph. I really like it. I really like the geometry of it. I really like the fact that I get like almost these little miniature vignettes because of the fragmented reflections. I like the little bit of surrealism where things I expect like railways to be straight lines start to twist and distort because of the imperfections in the glass. I like the inclusion of people. That really helps me understand this as a photo of a city, giving me a sense of the city. I wish there were more people. I feel like there's a couple places in the top left and sort of on the middle right where additional people would have added more interest to me, given me more reason to look around. So a couple of the spots are a little bit empty to me. I think the inclusion of the sky is maybe a little bit saturated compared to the rest of the photo. And I wish that was a bit more muted because when my eye gets there, I kind of spend a lot of time there. But overall, really enjoy the unique view, the unique perspective, and the almost like fantasy, like it takes me out of reality. The surreality of it is really cool.
Okay, next we have Public Art, Willie Nelson Boulevard.
To me, public art isn't always the best subject or depiction of city's energy, and I'm not really necessarily a fan of photographs of public art. To me, it kind of something just left for snapshots, travel albums, things like that. But other than that, the contrasting tones of the tree limbs above were kind of nice. Willie is blown out a little bit on his highlights, and the little more tonal enhancement would help the image.
That's a lot of windows to wash.
So this one I thought was a very creative idea with the title. Really makes this, you know, what is trying to be done here. I think that it was, a lot of times people don't look up, you know, so this is from an angle that most of the time people don't even see. So overall, there's a lot of things about this that I just think are very interesting, and the title really lets you know what you should be thinking here. It's strange, or it's like there's two pictures here. It almost looks like the top half is one picture, like a collage, and another one is right below it. But I'm sure that that's just how it looked as the picture was taken, and maybe this is the edge of one level, and then maybe that's a building behind it that goes up higher, or maybe it's the same one. But a couple of cropping suggestions that could maybe enhance the picture for the title. So if you cut it off and didn't even have the top, you just had the lower buildings with all those windows, and they go from the top of the picture to the bottom, from left to right, everywhere, then you really get that feeling of that's a lot of windows to wash. The other crop I think that would work well is a vertical crop, but cut off the sky and the crane, so it goes up with these big windows, and then it's kind of like when you're climbing Enchanted Rock, you get to this hill, and then above that you just see, oh, there's more, and they go all the way up. If you had it cropped so that you didn't see the sky at all, then it would just look like it's going on and on up into the heavens, and then that would really be a lot of windows to wash. So I think that there's some ways to crop this that could make it fit the title even better. But I think that was a very creative picture to notice and to take, and it's a humorous title to go with it. So there are many things that work on this. There are two different ways I think that it could be cropped that could maybe fit the title better. And I don't know, but I think seeing them in the different ways, see if any of those really work. So I thought it was very good for storytelling, and it was humorous.
Okay, thank you. All right, that was the end of the critiques, and now we'll go to judge's choice. Okay, we have 3 awards. So in third place, we have Ed.
Yeah, I took this on Gary's photo walk downtown a couple months ago. And believe me, I tried dozens of ways to crop this. I left the top part in just to show up more windows. And anyway, I also tried to see what would happen if I could straighten the lines, and that led to some very bizarre photos. So anyway, this is what I settled on.
Okay. Second, we have Rose Epps, the Blue Hour.
Oh. Okay, I'm here. I can't hear you.
Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah, so the question is that you've got second place on the intermediate ones, and would you comment on how you took the picture or anything about this picture?
Well, I wasn't able to make your photo walk to shoot the cityscape, So I had to con my husband into going down to the boardwalk. And this is the most common place to take the image. But I really love the blue hour. And that's why I chose this image to show. And I think the comment about the imperfections in the lower part of the water is right on. And I'm going to crop the image to make it 16:9.
Thank you. Okay, and then first we have Arlie Pfeiffer. Arlie's online. Do you want to say something, Arlie?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
This is an example of just looking up. So the group is not a lot. That's a group I was in, and the only thing I did was take me out. But it's at the downtown, do we call it a metro? I forget. Station. And we were waiting for the train, and I just happened to see this wonderful reflection and just looked up and took a picture. So I thought it turned out kind of cool.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. Okay. People's choice. Okay. Yeah. Is that people's or judges? No, it switched to judges. There we go. Okay, so in bronze, we have Mark Raby, Nightlights. Okay, in silver, we have Golden Reflections, Larry.
Well, when we had the photo walk that day, I thought I'd get down there a little early and wander around, see what else I could get before the golden hour and during the golden hour. And this was right at the peak of the sunset. It was about the best spot I could find from where I was wandering around, which was right behind where the dog park is. And that's kind of what I came up with. And I ended up having to crop it down tight on the left because I didn't like the intersection of the building to the left of the last one that you can see that's intersecting with the top of the frame. And the tree on the right was hard to get rid of, so I did the best of what I could, and I just brightened it up so that there was just a hint of green to it, but not enough to overwhelm anything else and take away from the image.
Yep. Good. Gold, we have Arlie Pfeiffer. Right. Going to advance.
Awesome, thanks.
Great, we have 10 images. First is Austin Aglow.
Oh, that's me. Awesome. I know, right
Oh,
now we're
it's
just
just
looking through them.
we cycle through it and then
So
we'll
sorry.
You're good. Next is Ladybird Lake Boardwalk. The Shining City. Early Morning Paris with Stars. Windows. Congress Street Bridge. Early Morning Copenhagen. City of Lights. Prague CZ Panorama. And Metro. Okay. Judges, peaks. Right. First up is Austin Aglow.
Now you're
All
on.
right,
Now you're
me. All right. So I think this is a fantastic image. I really like looking at it. I love the blue. I love the white lights. I love the perfectly centered building in the middle. I think the technical execution is really good. I don't love the bottom quarter of the image as much. I think seeing the street and a little bit of the event center for me distracts a little bit. And I would be interested to see what a crop would look like brought up a little bit higher, closer to a panorama angle, so that I could focus more just on the city. But that's a personal suggestion. I also think a touch more sharpness and a touch more contrast could be interesting too, to really pop the darkness of the sky against the brightness of the city. But I think it's a really successful photo.
Okay, next we have Lady Bird Lakeport.
I thought this was an extremely wonderful composition. The lead-in with the left rail starting from the right side of the frame and leading you to the couple and farther down the walkway toward the city. The rising sun on the right, beaming off the buildings in the distance, as well as shining on the trees on the left, lighting up the bridge piers from underneath. And the faint sunshine on the bridge deck with the couple is just mystical and story-like. The clouds were a gift from Mother Nature herself and really helped set the mood. To me, this image is like what you would see on the front of a brochure. And as we talked about during our meeting, was more like the artist rendition of something that was yet to be. The tones are excellent. Everything about this is just spot on. I'm not going to waste words just muddling over it.
Yep. Next we have The Shining City.
All right, this, I feel there's a nice play between nature and the control of nature. The organic forms of the trees and the vegetation frame this orderly city, the shining city in the center. And the city, you see that it's shining and it's reflecting in the water. So all of that goes really well with the name, but I think that having that organic natural trees and the banks or whatever, that's being all dark, and that's sort of surrounding this and caressing and hugging the city is really a neat image. I think that the light gives the sky a very lovely transition from that orangish red up through the up into the purples of the dark sky, with some stars just starting to come through. The one thing that I think draws my eyes a bit is over on the right. There's, I guess it's probably a street with cars moving, or there's something. It's just it's a bright white lines. And I think that if that could just be toned down some, so it was more at the level of the rest of the lights, it would keep everything focused into the center, the shining city in the center, and it wouldn't sort of break up that feeling of the nature surrounding it. But I think that I just think it's a very neat way of showing this, almost like a small city surrounded by nature. And so I think that it worked very well with that one thing that I think could maybe help keep your eyes to the center instead of drawing it off to that one edge.
Okay. Next we have Early Morning Paris with Stars.
Yeah, I think this is a really lovely photo. Makes me want to be there. I'm firmly planted in the scene. The view is a view I would see if I was standing there, and I wish I was. I like the warmth of the color palette and the lights. It feels right for that time of day. I like seeing the stars in the sky. Excuse me. I wish the kind of bluish white light on the right side of the frame had been color shifted or subdued a little bit, because that is the one thing that kind of pulls away from the color palette of the rest of the image. And if it matched, that would just, be even chef's kiss. But I like the texture of the cobblestones. I like the looks of the buildings. I just think it's a really cool photo.
Next, we have windows.
And I thought the image had a great mood and a really good story. And to me, looking at it, it was just kind of like the same type of effect as like looking into the cosmos. There were just so many different things to see. You looked in a different place and you saw different things. And after being mesmerized with the overall image of this very strong image, I really appreciate the strong lines and the randomness of this image overall. I was able to make out the individual stories of the lit up windows in the different rooms, and while most were either black or just casting the reflections, this is one of those images that just holds your attention because there's just so much to see as you look around. At first, I was not sure of the darkness of this image, but the maker did it just right, and it was truly everything that adds to the image that it creates, or the mood that it creates.
Okay, next we have Congress Street Bridge.
All right. This is a nice sunset image of the Austin skyline with the warm light of the setting sun illuminating Austin. The name implies the subject would be the Congress Street Bridge, but I feel that the real focus is more on these buildings that have been lit up by the just recently set sun. I think that there's some keystoning that could be done to get the building straight. When you get out to the right side, it feels like they're tipping in some, and I think it would benefit from having them be adjusted a little bit to make them straight. And the bridge is all dark, so it doesn't seem like that's really the focus. And I know that it's nice to see the yellow sun grading into the blue of the sky, but I wonder if you had a more of a 4x5 prop and took out some of that sun set and that part of the bridge and focus more on the city, which ultimately becomes the more interesting, I think, part of the composition. And you would lose some of that gradation, but I think that it could possibly improve the overall composition. So I'm not sure that helps. I think though that with the name may not be the best, because I don't think that the focus here is really the Congress Street Bridge. I guess that gives you an idea of the direction you're doing for people from Austin, that they would know that that's the Congress Street Bridge, but if it is, I guess it is. Yeah, it would be. So that's a little bit that I think that could help a little bit, and that maybe doing that other crop would focus more on actually the most interesting parts of the image.
Okay. Early morning in Copenhagen.
Yes, this is a really refreshing scene. The color palette lightens my mood. It feels really calm and pleasant, and it's very pretty. I like this photo a lot. I like the texture of the sky and the reflection of the texture in the water as well. I think that keeps the negative space from being empty or boring, but they're not demanding my attention, so they don't pull me away from the subject, which is the buildings. I like the angle of the shot. I like the colors of the buildings. I like the presence of the boats. It's a really, for me, a successful photo. I like the sharpness. I like the contrast as well. When I wrote about it, I had suggested cropping a little bit off the right just to see if, for me, when I watch the boats, I stop at the last white boat, and then there's just a little bit of dark space in the water after those boats that I think removing perhaps could help the picture feel a little bit more complete. But as I sit here looking at it, I'm not sure I agree with that. So it's something to play with, but I'm not convinced. This is not a strongly held opinion, just an idea to maybe play with. But yeah, great picture.
Okay, City of Lights.
I really like the tones and the lighting of this image. The still and inky water reflecting the city lights adds a really nice touch. The all but faded last light in the sky complements the rest of the image, while the branches in the foreground are not the most pleasing part of this image. They don't really hurt it very much, but the lights on the power plant on the left are a bit strong compared to the rest of the lighting, and they keep you from enjoying the view. If the maker toned down the lights on the left, including the red ones, and if the maker would also add more space above the center building, this image would go from great to breathtaking.
Okay, Frog CZ Panorama.
Oh, we went out of order. All right, that's me again. So yeah, it's a cool view of a city I've never been to, and I'm really thrilled to have this opportunity to see it. I love the architecture. I love the real consistent terracotta and yellow color palette throughout the whole thing. I do a little bit wish there was a more foreground subject of interest. This is a risk with panoramas when thinking about them like as art is, it's showing a whole lot of everything kind of equally. The cathedral on the left really, really seems super interesting to me. And I almost wish there was like a ray of sunlight or something on it, so I had reason to look at it a little bit more specifically, or maybe a closer crop on the image to showcase that, but then you lose the panorama. So I don't know that that's the right thing to do. Yeah, so I kind of wish for like a subject, but I really enjoy looking at it as it is. The horizon does go up a little bit on the right. I think there's a little bit of a bowing effect, almost like a fisheye from the lens that maybe could be tweaked or corrected, but that may be incidental. Yeah, it's a good picture.
Okay, we have Metro.
This is a very interesting and original treatment of the Austin skyline. And also note, all the buildings are straight. Keystoning was adjusted well, or perhaps the image was taken from a higher vantage point so that you're looking more at the middle of the buildings with a telephoto or a more normal lens, not a wide angle lens that bends everything. So all of that looks really good. I think that the selective focus on the one building really makes it stand out. And I think that it was a good choice to do that on this curved building as opposed to one of the more rectangular buildings. And this just gives something about the way that everything's out of focus on the sides and the color palette just gives a very dreamy yet futuristic look to our city. And the reflected sky, I guess, on some of those buildings that are out of focus on the left make them look like they're translucent or maybe even completely transparent. So I think it's a very interesting effect. Everything about this image works. I think the maker should be really proud of their creative choices, and I think that they really paid off here. It's not like other images that we see of Austin, and this looks like a city of the future.
Okay. The judge's choice. Okay. In third place, we have Mary Daylong, Shining City.
This was the Blue Hour ramble when I went to a completely different place that I knew to take this one. And I like it. I want to go back there and shoot it in infrared. And I'm going to take my lopper and get that one branch.
Okay, and second, we have Dennis with Lady Bird Lake.
Well, I've walked this bridge many times and I thought it was a good spot for a picture. And one morning I had to take my wife to the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And so I went back to the spot and I sat there for 3 hours watching the sun come up, taking pictures till the light changed, people changed, activities changed. It was kind of interesting because normally I'm running around going crazy, just trying to take 100 shots. And this morning I just kind of sat in one spot and watched the shadows and the lights change. And this, I kept coming back to this shot after I looked at all of my pictures.
Okay, and first we have Gary with Metro.
Thank you, thank you. That's unexpected because I like being outside on these things and I never know what to expect. This was, yeah, so this was taken on our photo walk at Auditorium Shores. The effect is achieved with a Lens Baby Edge optic, which I have lots of fun with. And so I was trying to get the center sharp and everything else all wacky. So I appreciate the comments about the buildings on the left. I didn't even think about that, the transparency thing. So that was really cool. But yeah, lots of fun. I like playing with those lenses.
Okay, People's Choice. All right, in bronze, we have Mary again. Silver, we have Bill with Austin to Glow.
This was another image from Gary's photo walk. And this was a pano from up high in the garage, the top floor of the garage. So I think there's about 6 or 8 frames horizontal, all of them HDR, and then brought together in Lightroom. And I understand that not wanting all of the foreground in there, but it would just, without having the river in it, you need to have some foreground.
Yeah. Okay, and then gold, the Dennis. End of the images.
Anything else from our judges? Did you individually have an image that you particularly liked?
There were lots of good images. The only thing I would say is that if we have any time, anyone else that's here that had a picture that wants to comment on it, I would be interested in hearing what they have to say. I don't know whose pictures they are, but
You three got to talk. Patrick, did you put an image in here?
City lights.
Let's go to.
I just want to thank the 3 judges for taking their time to give us the benefit of the opinion. Just one note for me is that the judges, of course, sounded like when they were making the comments, they were speaking about their own opinion. But our procedure is that the 3 judges meet ahead of time and have a full discussion of their comments and feedback. And then we have one judge who is the spokesperson. And that should, encapsulate the whole discussion that you guys have, right?
Yeah.
And so just for the viewers, remember, and for Cody and the future judges, I hope that you'll say that the team discussed or the judges discussed, instead of putting all the language in terms of I like, most of you were giving your comments, which were excellent, in terms of your own personal opinion. I'd like you to comment and record any of the discussion the judges had in the future.
Okay, so this image was shot on the photo walk that Gary had set up for the Blue Hour. And it is down on the river, shot with a, if I'm not mistaken, I was about 24 millimeters vertical framing. And it's, look, I probably did, this is probably 8 exposures stitched together. And the program that I used a program called PT GUI to build these images. And it's much more superior to what Photoshop and Lightroom have available. And it outputs in whatever format you want, so you can work it from there. So everything else after the stitching was done in Photoshop. So, yeah.
If no one else has anything for us, thank you all for coming. Thank you, judges, for doing a great job on reviewing the images. Cody, thank you. Ed, thank you for making this happen every week. Clay, thank you too. It takes both of you to make it happen. Good night, guys.